Hello and welcome to episode number 99 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk about the hobby that makes us happy, card games. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim. Today we are talking with the dice master himself, DM Armada.
That was pretty good. That was good.
That's what the DM says.
I like that. Exactly.
Dice master.
I like it. That was pretty good. All right, guys. But before we get into this episode, we need to talk quickly about our sponsor, Amazon Audible. If you head over to our affiliate link, audibletrial.com. I do that every time. It's audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness. You can sign up for your free 30 trial of Amazon's Audible service. Amazon Audible is Amazon's audiobook service. When you sign up, you get a free credit added to your account. All right, so you follow that link, get a free credit you can use on any audiobook within their service. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you get 2 free credits. So you follow that link, sign up, you get either 1 free credit or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member. Get whatever audiobook you want from the service. It's great. It's really, really great. I love listening to audiobooks on my commute. It really helps me. I don't have much time to read, so I'm in the car. It gives me some time to just listen to an audiobook, and there's some really good ones out there. So again, follow that link, sign up. What's even better is if you don't want the service, you don't like the service, you can cancel before the end of that 30 days, but you still get to keep that credit on your account. So again, audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness. Find the link down in the description or the podcast notes. All right, so like Jim said, we are talking to a friend of ours, a DM Armada. This is a very fun conversation and really one that I've been looking forward to having for a while because I came across his content a long time ago. Been following him for a while, and then when we got to meet him recently at an event, it was surreal. It's from the point of, like, you watch these people on TV and like you think you're never going to meet them, and then when you meet these. Okay, it wasn't really kind of, because it's one of those when you meet people that you watch, it's a weird feeling. Yeah. It's a weird feeling. So anyway, that was fun, and this is a great conversation. I'm just reminded the first thing that we talked about.
Oh, the important stuff.
The first. Yeah. You know what? Let's just get into it, and you guys will see what I'm talking about. Yes. So here we go.
Enjoy.
All right, today on the podcast, we are joined by DM Armada. DM Armada is a fellow card game content creator and a caster for games such as Flesh and Blood. DM Armada, how are you doing today, sir? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here and hang out and talk card games. You said in the beforehand that we were just going to talk card games, and then you just said it's all Lorcana. So I'm prepared to talk all Lorcana if that's what you want to do. But I'll talk about whatever. It's no big deal. Sorry, I pull the curtain back so everyone knows what we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah. Now, all right. Now, before we really get into the episode, okay, there's one question that Jim likes to ask, but okay.
We already kind of know
we already kind of know the answer. However, this is another episode where we met Steven here at a local tournament, okay, for min-max games for Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Jim, why don't you take this away, okay? Because this is your thing.
All right, so it's been what now? A couple months?
It's been a few months. All
right, so a couple months at that tournament, we met you. Do you remember the dude who was knocked out on the couch? He was sleeping for like 3 to 5 hours.
Do I remember that dude?
That dude was crazy.
I do remember that dude. Why do you ask?
I mean, just wondering, because I remember seeing him there. I remember a couple people talking about to him, and yeah, it was a funny time.
This was the event that it was in the main main conference room connected to the hotel, like right on the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes. And he was sleeping in the lobby.
Yeah.
Yes.
On that little couch that had no arm. Yeah. 100% remember that guy. I know who that guy is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember waking up like a couple times. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. No one needs me yet. All right, back to sleep. And I'm just knocking out for a couple hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you think when you saw that guy? What was running through your head?
What was running through my head?
Yes.
That guy probably had a little bit too much. He just couldn't handle himself.
All right,
That
so
guy knows how to party.
so for those of you who don't know, Jim, didn't you like just come from work? You came like straight from
I just
work.
got out of work from running on like 2 hours of sleep after leaving work. 8 hour shift, 2 hours of sleep, did a 12-hour shift, and then I came straight into this tournament.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? That
I'm not gonna
console's
lie,
really comfy.
Yes.
I literally passed you multiple times, and I was like, man, I did not know day drinking was back. I'm gonna put that. And send my wife a text on that one. Say, hey, we're back in business. I mean, I don't drink, but you know, it looked pretty comfortable. You looked like you were having a decent time. So I was like, all right, guess we're in on this.
Now in my head, I'm like, someone could have taken a photo and just been like, you know, sometimes you're gonna skip your round 3 just for a nap.
Yeah. I'm also wondering how many people actually passed you by and then took photos.
Yeah,
That's what I
know.
want to know.
I don't know. I'm sure they're out there somewhere.
Oh my goodness. So
The unfortunate ramifications of too many O2 drops. You just descend into like depression.
X2.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We gotta, confuse them a little bit.
oh, that's funny. Yeah, so we talked to Jacob Bartram about this as well. We posed the same question to him, and he was like, "Oh, that guy was you."
Dude, after the tournament was great when we were sitting in the lobby of that hotel.
Oh,
and everyone just was coming downstairs, and they were like, "Wait, that was you? You're an idiot." I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's go party. Come on.
Yeah, and then we went to party, and that was a good time.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
Night.
Now, also, so we want to know, Stephen, when's the next time you're going to actually play in a tournament?
Oh, good question. Well, I played in 3 pre-releases this past weekend.
Ooh,
for
nice.
DTD. Are you talking like big scale tournaments, or are you talking just like when am I going to play?
Yeah, big tournament.
Big scale tournaments, large scale tournaments.
I'm most likely playing and calling DFW.
Okay.
So that's coming up in October, like October 10 or something like that.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
I did not go out and try to battle for a nationals invite or anything like that. So I don't have one of those unless I don't think you can even buy those. I'm not sure if you can even buy those. I don't think I would do that anyway.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
But I think the next large scale tournament will probably be calling DFW.
Okay.
And I'll start prepping for that like next week.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, and we mentioned this before we started the call, and I want to mention this again because I'm sure you hear this all the time. But the first time I came across your content was searching for Dice Masters content.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dice Masters is a game that I first found out about from a cousin of my wife's, and who's also a pretty big tabletop game player. Mm-hmm. Asked if I'd ever heard of it. I'm like, nope, never heard of it. So when I started researching it, I came across your content. We played. You remember when we played it? We tried it out.
Yeah, I hated it.
You did?
I was not good.
You were not good.
And I hate the RNG, man.
So, all right. So, Stephen,
I think I would argue that you're looking at it from a wrong perspective. Then, if you're looking at it with a lot of RNG,
you're right. I'm looking at it through my perspective. I'm a guy who played it once.
Yeah. So
there it is.
Yeah. So, Stephen, because I'm sure that there's many people, in our audience who listen to the podcast who have no idea what Dice Masters is. So could you kind of give a top down explanation as best you could for a new player of kind of explain what that game is?
Sure. So if you're going like elevator pitch, think deck building game mixed with completely open information. So what everyone could do at any given moment. So deck building plus open information plus Magic the Gathering, and you have Dice Masters. So you assemble a face-up team of characters that you will play alongside or as. And then over the course of the game, you will use a standard set of like energy dice to purchase more characters or actions that are on your team so that you can then go and execute your game plan. The dice themselves have stats as stat lines, and they act as characters in the field. You can attack, you can block in the same sense that you can attack and block in Magic the Gathering. You can over time mitigate the RNG that you find in rolling dice through a variety of methods, and a lot of it is really good deck building and really good range analysis, and it very much rewards really high player skill and really high player understanding of what the two teams that you're playing, your team and your opponent's team, are trying to do. It is incredibly skill intensive and one of the best managements of RNG I've ever seen employed in a game. And it is absolutely phenomenal to play. The more you play it, the more you learn how to execute certain things, and the more you pick it up. It's almost to the point where, yes, there is RNG, and you'll always experience that in just about any card game, but the better player almost always wins. And you find that in Fab as well. The better player almost always wins, minus RNG and things like that. The same thing holds true in Dice Masters, and it is the game that made me fall in love with trading card games. There's a lot of people that say, Magic the Gathering was the game that made me fall in love with TCGs. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. I've played all three of those games before picking up TCGs and really diving in. It was Dice Masters that made me fall in love with it, simply because of how great that game is at medium, intermediate to high level of play. It's really, really rewarding.
Interesting.
It does make sense as to why I'm not good at it, because it's skill based and I can't just throw money at the screen.
Well, you could definitely do that. They had a couple of cards that allowed you to throw money at the screen. Weirdly enough, the best card they ever printed was in a starter set.
Wow.
So
Really?
everyone could play it, and it spiked too many tournaments, and they took too long to actually ban the card, and a bunch of people left the game. So weirdly enough, they actually
Really?
killed the game to some degree at a time for a portion of time with a starter set.
Wow.
Which is so
hilarious.
silly
That's crazy
to think about. But yeah, it's a pretty powerful card.
So when I look at a game like Dice Masters, right, and then I compare it to the big three or all these other card games, like before my friend or my wife's cousin had mentioned that game, I had never heard about it. So it's interesting to me because, and you've worked in a game store, was there ever a Dice Masters community at Grapple?
No, not at all. But we did have some of the stuff for Dice Masters for a little bit, but that was before I worked there.
Okay. So, Stephen, like at its peak, well, I'm curious at where Dice Masters was at its peak, like player base wise, and then also kind of where it's at now. Like, is it still? Because my understanding is it is still in active development. It's not dead by any means, as far as I'm aware. Is that correct?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay.
I have not been in contact with the company in a while. I haven't talked to WizKids or WizKids reps in a while, but my understanding is that it is still in active development as well.
Okay.
At its peak, do you know the game Star Wars Destiny?
Yes.
Came out 2 years, maybe 3 years after Dice Masters did. What you experienced in Star Wars Destiny and the boom that happened, and then the player base that grew out of that, similar to Dice Masters. Dice Masters fell off a little bit after that, simply because I think the IP that they started with, which was your Marvel, your X-Men, those were the first two sets, very extremely popular. And then they shifted and they did a Yu-Gi-Oh set. And there were people that were turned off by that. And then they did right after that, I think they did they either did one more Marvel set and then followed it up with a D&D set, so a Dungeons and Dragons set, or they just did after Yu-Gi-Oh a Dungeons and Dragons set. So there were some people that were turned off by the fact that they were doing the kind of standard WizKids move of employing their bevy of really good IPs to put into a game, kind of like what they do with Hero Clicks.
Right.
And there were also some people that were put off by, a variety of other little ancillary things, part of the game that comes with any card game. Like, hey, this card's powerful and I don't feel like buying it, so I don't want to play it. Stuff like that, right? So you saw a little bit of a drop off. But the best part about that game, outside of the gameplay, and I would put this community up against any other community that I've ever been in, is the community that plays Dice Masters. The most wholesome people I've ever gotten to experience being around, talking with. And I would put this up against like the Fab community as one of the top communities I've ever been a part of. They are just great people, passionate about the game, but also care about each other. And that's what you get when you have a smaller, more tight-knit community. It was a game that continually survives and thrives on the internet as well. It was the first game that I know of that actively sort of dove into online, like Google Hangouts play. Like I did my first I don't know, online tournament of any card game ever via Dice Masters, and I organized it via Google Hangouts.
Awesome.
And so
Interesting.
it was like 2015, 2016, that sort of online play via webcam really picked up and started in Dice Masters, and it took off, and they do online tournaments literally all the time. Like when COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
nothing changed in that community. Literally nothing changed except all the people that would go on Thursdays to this game store, they now just meet on Thursdays online. It's like that sort of thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a very it is continually a very tight-knit community of players that are really passionate about the game, and honestly are at a very high level as well. They're all very good players.
Very cool. Very cool. So do you still play that? Like, do you still actively play that, or you mostly stick with Flesh and Blood stuff right now?
I play that game with my kids a decent bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I have not sat down and built a competitive team in I don't even remember how long. As far as like getting on and rolling it out, I think I joined the last time I did a tournament with that community was maybe 2021, 22, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So either a year or 2 years ago, when I really sat down and played competitively. But I taught my kids how to play board games with Dice Masters.
Huh.
And so my kids both of my oldest two actively learned how to play a board game via that game. And so we
Awesome.
play it from time to time at the kitchen table.
Very cool.
We build a lot of theme teams because it's Marvel. It's really
Yeah.
easy to get into,
Yeah.
especially into my boys' hands. It's like,
Right.
hey, look, here are characters you recognize. Here are characters you know. Let's play with these characters. Kids love Spider-Man. I designed a Spider-Man playmat. We printed it, had it shipped. Boom.
Nice.
Play on that. Play Spider-Man teams. That's what we do.
Very cool. Very cool. So how did you first get into that game? Because like I'd mentioned, I heard about it from a friend, a family member, and I had never heard or even seen anything about that game before prior to that. How did you come across Dice Masters?
So again, when the game came out, it was popular, particularly in our area, in the area that I was
Gotcha.
in, and people were playing it. I was not playing trading card games at the time. I was playing board games with friends, and I had a friend that I had kind of introduced some board games to, and he got really into board games. So he would actually go to the board game store, buy a bunch of board games. We had a board game night one night, and we played a couple of board games, and then I was playing. We played this 4-player game where if you get killed, you get knocked out and you go like just sit somewhere else, right?
Right.
And it was like a miniature style game that it took a while. So
Yeah.
it was me and this other guy, and we were kind of punching each other in the face with the miniatures, as you would do.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and my friend here got killed, so they were just off to the side. They just like, I don't know, checking their phone. Social media still existed, so they're probably doing that. No, and then he was like, "Hey, I have this other game. You want to try this? Come here." And he introduced her to Dice Masters because they had these box sets. In
Yeah.
fact, they're right back there.
Yeah.
They had those box sets right there. So he busted out the box set. He said, "Here's 4 cards. This is your team." He explained kind of the rules of the game.
Yeah.
After we finished our board game, I walked over to her to see what they were playing,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of watched, and I was like, okay, this is intriguing. And I wanted to spend more time with my friend. And so I said, you know what? Let's do it. I'll go buy some packs. I'll go buy the starter box.
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue what I'm doing. If I buy these packs, do I get the cards? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I just went to the store. I bought some packs. We met at Starbucks and we played this game.
Nice.
And after playing it like 2 or 3 times and he kind of beat me a couple times, I was like, okay, I understand. I know where this is going.
And you will
so
never
from that
beat me
point,
again.
I started. Well, I mean, I'm not saying no, but I don't recall. I don't recall losing again in that respect.
Nice.
And so I started playing it and playing it and playing it. And then I went on YouTube and I started trying to watch content on it.
Mm-hmm.
And no one was making content on it. This was a little bit more back in the heyday of YouTube, I guess, almost 10 years ago now.
Right.
And so no one was making content. There was this one channel. I still remember it. They did Dice Masters gameplay. They literally just turned on their camera.
Yep.
They were playing via Google Hangouts. They turned
Yep.
on like a screen recorder, and they just played back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched all of those games that they posted like
Yep.
2 times, 3 times over.
Yep.
And I was like, look, I really like this game. No one's making content for
Yep.
it. if I want to watch this stuff, I might as well go ahead and start making stuff for
Right.
it. So I started
Yep.
making videos
Yep.
for that game.
Yep. And that's how a lot of YouTube channels started, just like that.
Yeah.
You see a need, you see a need, you fill a need, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to hear. So you kind of moved from that into Flesh and Blood, right? Because I mean I remember. I distinctly remember when I started seeing more Flesh and Blood videos coming from you and not Dice Master. So I'm like, huh, because that was when I was starting to see more stuff about Flesh and Blood. I wasn't, really getting into the game, but I just knew it was around and it was picking up steam, pretty popular. What turned you on to Flesh and Blood?
Well, I'll tell you this. Actually, I didn't go from Dice Masters to Flesh and Blood. I went from Dice Masters to Dice Masters and Keyforge.
Yes.
And I played a ton
Yes.
of Keyforge.
Yes.
And I have a box in there with hundreds of Keyforge decks.
Yes.
Because I love Keyforge. That game is insanely fun.
Yes.
And so I got, and in fact, I didn't even go from Dice Masters to that. I went Dice Masters and I played Star Wars Destiny for a year or so. And I got into that with a couple of friends that also played Dice Masters. We played both games. And then I dropped that and I went to Keyforge. I played Keyforge along with Dice Masters when I moved up into this area. And then COVID happened. And so I couldn't go to like Dice Masters events. I couldn't go to Keyforge events.
Right.
But I picked up Flesh and Blood because I loved the art. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the audacity of the product. Like if you look back at what 2019, like October 2019, Flesh and Blood looked like, it was like, here's an upstart TCG from New Zealand that is literally billing their logo and tagline as Flesh and Blood, the next classic TCG.
Yeah.
And here's a upstart TCG that is literally hosting 2 10K tournaments in the US a week or a month after the game comes out. It's like, how audacious is that?
Yeah.
Like, that is so worth following. And so I bought a couple of like products and I kind of got into it and I started like looking and reading and that sort of stuff, messing around with deck ideas. And really, Flesh and Blood came on slowly for me as far as content comes.
Right.
Because at the time, I put out like a how to play video because I really believed in the game. And I put out maybe a couple of like, the Arcane Rising set was coming out pre-COVID. And so I talked about like some of the spoilers leading up to that because I was excited about what this could do. And then COVID hit and I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs with a lot of time on my hands. Right. And so I started building more decks for it. Then I started playing that alongside Dice Masters and Keyforge. I played that through the lockdown. And so I was playing like 3 games at the same time, just back and forth, like kind of juggling. And slowly but surely, Flesh and Blood just started taking over my mindset. I was just like thinking more and more about it because I just loved the deck building of it. I loved the look of it. I loved how every hero felt unique and different, and they all played differently. And I wanted to play all of them. Right. And then they kept releasing heroes. And if you want to play all of them and they keep releasing heroes, like what the heck do you do? You just have to play it more. Right. And so that's what I did. I just kept playing it. Right. And just kept putting out videos.
Right. And now you go from that to now you're casting tournaments for Flesh and Blood. Did you ever think you'd like get into that?
I hoped I would.
Okay.
In fact, so here's the thing. My channel started with commentary.
Okay.
Everything that I did leading up to like the first year was literally I took that webcam. I took a tripod setup. I went to my local game store with a laptop. I opened the laptop, I pressed record, I put the camera down towards the mats, and then I just played games with my friends. Then I took all of that home and I sat on Windows Movie Maker with a crappy mic that for 3 months I did not realize was actually not working. And I recorded audio. All these videos are still up. You can go all the way back to the start of my channel and you can watch the very first video and you can listen to my crappy like audio commentary. Yeah. And I literally just talk through every single game for a year that I posted. Yeah. Before I started doing like edited content. Yeah. And then I started employing edited content along with gameplay content. Right. And so, everything I did for the first 2-3 years of my channel was commentary or commentary adjacent. And so then 2019 in 2019, September of 2019, Dice Masters was holding their World Championship alongside of all of the WizKids games, and they were hosting it at Graceland because WizKids is owned by NECA, and NECA owns Graceland, so Elvis and all of that, which is really interesting connection. So they actually hosted the World Championship of all of their games at Graceland, and I had been bound and determined to show up and provide a stream that people could watch and commentary. So the very first official commentary event that I did was me and a few of my friends. We put together an entire stream setup. I put together all the overlays. I brought this monitor that I'm looking at to my left. That was our TV that weekend. We set up webcams. We set up microphones. Me and a friend did commentary for 12 hours the first day, did commentary for 10 hours the second day, did commentary for 12 hours. No, I guess it was only 6 hours the third day. And that was my first official commentary experience. And ever since I did that, I had hoped that I could do more stuff like it because I loved that experience, even though I was blasted by the end of it.
That's cool. Now, I have a question here from a friend of ours.
Oh man,
says
here it is.
Ask him what's the hardest part about casting with Flake.
The hardest part about casting with Flake is not going as off the rails as Flake wants to go off the rails. Because here's the thing. If I'm casting not with Flake, my goal is to take on whatever kind of traits that caster wants to bring to the table. Okay. Along with, of course, trying to provide the fundamentals, which I believe are important for commentary and for a broadcast and for people to enjoy at home.
Okay.
Outside of those, I want to try and match the energy or the overall demeanor of the person that I'm commentating with.
Okay.
With Flake, there's a lot of fun manic energy and a lot of tangents that can be pitched. And if he's pitching out a tangent, sometimes I really struggle not to just go with it, lock arms and arm in arm into that oblivion, right? We just go off into that forever sky and just start talking about random stuff. Okay, I could go that. So for me, sometimes it's just hard not to do that and to try to kind of keep it on the rails. And sometimes I just don't feel like it. Sometimes I just go off the rails myself because you know what? It's been 12 hours. I feel like not doing it. You know what? It's my stream. I will take it myself. Thank you. That sort of thing. So that's probably the hardest part.
If I was casting with them, we'd go all over the place. It seems like.
Oh my word!
I get off the rails real quick.
See, but here's the thing, though. I think it's important from a commentary perspective to have a little bit of that levity. Now, how much of that levity is really up to the coordinators of the stream,
right?
Just the overall, I guess the company to some degree,
right?
The amount of levity that you want there is subjective, and there's of course too much, right? Okay. Especially depending on the type of event. Like you're commentating, a world championship, you don't necessarily want to be talking about sloppy joes and why you think they're a pox upon humanity, right?
But
that's not what you want to get into.
On the sandwich for sloppy joes, dude, they're so good.
Really?
Yeah, you take potato chips, throw it right on top of the hamburger meat. You throw the other bun on there. Sometimes you got to double the size of the sloppy joe itself.
Is this the kind of tangent you were just talking about?
I'm not gonna lie. I actually 100% agree with you.
I now want some sloppy joes, man.
Because honestly, I hate sloppy joes until I figured that out. When I figured that out, I actually started being okay with it. My parents cooked sloppy joes every other week, growing up, and I was like, "Oh, this is the worst." And then I started putting just just in general, Ruffles, for example, on there. It's okay, cool. 100%. Add a little crunch. It doesn't it's not just slime mess that makes me think I'm eating ooze from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No, but you don't want that kind of tangent on the finals, the semifinals of a world championship. But you might want that if it's 3 a.m. and you're doing a stream of, something that's going on that's a little bit more casual. That may be okay. That's people would love that. And reading your audience and then also knowing that they're there to be entertained
Right.
by both gameplay
Right.
and also by what they're listening to. I think
Right.
they're both very important
Right.
aspects. And
Right.
and I think a lot of people look at commentary and don't realize necessarily that there is a line to be towed and threaded, and they perhaps prefer one or the other. But I think that's
Yeah.
important to have both.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have one other question from our friend Matt. He says he asks, what is a type of TCG related YouTube content you'd never make? Since we're talking
The
about
type
content.
of TCG related content I would never make.
Yes. Or is there anything you'll never say no to? You're open to pretty much everything.
I feel like if it has value in some way, shape, or form, I'd be open to making it.
Yeah.
If I find either a topic or a type of video that is completely devoid of value to someone,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be value in the form of like I learned something,
Mm-hmm.
value in the form of I literally just need to take my mind off of the fact that this tragedy just happened, and so I would like to have a little bit of levity.
You're right.
That's value that I really appreciate at
Mhm.
times myself.
Mhm.
If it has value, I don't think I would say no to it, especially if I think it's funny or if I think it's fun or if I
Mhm.
think it's informative.
Right.
I would go for it.
Right. Right.
If it didn't, if I found a topic that didn't have it, then I wouldn't pull the trigger on that.
Okay.
Can you think of a video type or content in general that you would not do?
No, I can't. And in all honesty, I don't. I mean, you might be able to, but I feel like there's especially in the card game sphere, the realm of
Villainous?
card games.
Are you talking about specific games?
No. Just type of content. He brings this up because when we started,
Look,
What-
dude, I just can't. I don't like casual games. I don't know what you want from me. It's not competitive. I don't care that you're going to have a tournament at some, event coming up.
oh man,
I don't care.
You're trolling. Jim is over here trolling. So we started when we started making content. We started just doing a lot of villainous content. We were playing a lot of villainous games. Jim didn't really like it that
Oh
much,
man,
and you didn't tell me
No,
for
I
the
didn't.
longest time.
I was just like, I'll deal with it.
And then when he finally told me, I'm like, "What? How long have you been feeling like this?"
The best part
The
was
world
Dan,
has changed.
Yeah.
The best part
It was like you started seeing in color for the first time.
Dan even had to initiate it. He's just like, I don't think I want to do as much of this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, thank you. I've hated this game for a year.
I'm like, "You what? Like what?
I'm like, I had to deal with it.
Yeah."
Had to do it for the views,
Which, and you know what? Like as the guy doing it with you, like I can appreciate that to some extent, but then I was also like, you got to tell me these things. I don't want to make you do stuff you don't want to do. Yeah. That was an interesting conversation. Anywho, let's stay on the Disney train. All right. We mentioned.
Hey, did you know Ravensburger made both Villainous and a knockoff Rush of Icor? Did you know that? They made both of those.
True.
I've heard
You
of this
believe that?
Rush of Icor. It's supposed to be a really good.
Apparently, it
game.
exists somewhere. It only needed to be patented April, but it's existed in some form or fashion for years. I tell you, years.
So how much stock do you put in that lawsuit? Do you put
Understood.
exactly?
Are we talking about this? That is the most asinine lawsuit I've ever seen, and I don't know anything about law, and I still think it is absolutely absurd. It is stupid, and I don't think anyone expects. If you've looked into anything,
Yes.
and again, I don't know much about it, but if you look into anything related to anything lately with that lawsuit, it's not going anywhere
Yeah.
or doing anything.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. It went to federal court.
moved to federal
Scratch
court,
that. I'm
yes.
sorry.
Moved to
It actually
federal
did
court.
move. It moved to a worse spot for Upper Deck. So,
Yes.
yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
think it's going anywhere anytime soon. And I would be shocked if it were. But then again, I guess I'm not the person you should ask on that because I don't know much
Well,
about law. I just read about people that know about law, about what they say. So.
Well, it was funny too because like as I started reading through that lawsuit, and like for for any card game player, it was kind of funny because in that lawsuit, they're like saying, this is the first game, this is the only game that implements these certain mechanics, and I'm like, you're literally not though. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
So because
I know.
I looked at that lawsuit and I'm like, I'm sorry, this just looks to me like a cash grab. They're wanting to stop. They want to put a TRO and they just want to settle quick and just they need a cash
If
grab.
that's the case, Wizards could sue every card game.
Well, I don't think they can anymore because of because we've had this conversation many times about.
I was just more so meaning like how many different card games are like Magic.
Came off of Magic's heels. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
If anything, we should be looking at like the original owners of Keyforge and going, okay, wait, stop. Let's slow down. We have a very similar setup here. Things like the combat system works quite similarly in a lot of respects. There's a lot of shared kind of design space that we're kind of crossing over here. Is that the company that should be suing? Because they came out first, and Rush of Icor had a nice little summit.
Right.
And they brought a lot of people in. They're like, hey guys, let's come up with a game. You heard of this Keyforge thing? Let's take that. Let's make it to where you can only attack the things that are tapped. And then we'll put a Kaijudo resource system on it. Let's do it. We're done. Okay, wait. Now let's come up with an original IP. And then Ryan Miller's like, nah. How about no? I'll take it to the best IP. I'll take my talents to South Beach.
I'm just upset that he called
it all just seems absurd to me. Like this premise seems absurd. Here's the thing, and the idea that this game is so unique and it's it shouldn't share any possible like mechanic with this other game because the uniqueness is what matters is absurd. Agreed. Card games sharing mechanics is going to exist forever.
Agree.
Name the last time you experienced a card game that had a truly unique mechanic, unlike anything you've ever played before. I have one.
You're talking about a TCG specifically, like a
I mean,
TCG,
yeah, you can
CCG?
even throw in just normal. I would go TCG, CCG, or you can throw in a card game.
The last time.
I can't remember the last time I experienced a game include something like a pitch system in Flesh and Blood. That to me was groundbreaking.
Yeah. But see, I played Marvel Champions before I played Flesh and Blood. And so that was the first time I had experienced a system like that. Marvel Champions has a very similar system to Flesh and Blood. But I can't remember which one came out first. I think Flesh and Blood might have come out first. I'm not totally certain, but
it's a good question.
But again, those are games that again share a similar type of mechanic. One's a TCG, one is a living card game. So very different types of.
Yeah, for me, I think it was Vanguard in terms of when you would attack something, you reveal off the top of the deck to see if you would get an additional effect. With one of the triggers, and then you just put it into hand.
But then like that system is kind of like in Final Fantasy. The reveal off the top. I mean,
yeah, but I was just saying because Vanguard came out.
Yes.
That was the.
But I'm just giving another game that has a similar.
Yeah, with the damage check.
Right. And that's not.
It turns out Marvel Champions came out in 2020 apparently.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay.
Interesting. So for me, and thinking before that, I mean, like perhaps the asymmetry of something like a Netrunner, or maybe you go all the way back to like how Legend of the Five Rings had like these crazy disparate win conditions, things like that, right? Those are truly unique. A lot of other mechanics, and I'm sure there's some out there that you haven't talked about, but a lot of other mechanics are just optimizations of things that already existed.
Yeah.
And that's okay in a card game.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay in a card game. But can you sue over, an optimization of a mechanic or a mechanic being employed? I don't know. I've seen some people that say yes. I've seen very smart people say no, but then they add more stuff to it.
Right.
I think that court case really doesn't come down to the mechanics and the theft of the game, which I don't technically put any merit into. I don't think it was theft, but again, I don't know. I think the court case if anything, the argument comes down to whether or not Ryan Miller takes things from what he created over at Upper Deck and then actually, you know, takes it over to, you know, the Lorcana creation. And honestly, that would be where I would be the most interested to see what comes of it and if something happens through there. But I don't put any merit into anything coming of that. And I honestly don't really want to give it much more time of day because I think Lorcana is too interesting and too exciting to really hinge that upon, in my opinion.
Right.
So.
The last, excuse me. The last thing I just want to say before we really dive into Lorcana is, like, there's a game right now. I think we've talked about a little bit, but it's Alpha Clash, and that's a game that we've talked to the creator Ridge, and he's one of the ways that he pitched it to us is it shares a lot of things from a lot of different games and brings it together. It's familiar but different.
Except the Clash
100%.
Grounds. That's brand new.
Never experienced a persistent in the field buff. Or
Never
anything
seen
like
a Pokemon Stadium before.
It was funny. We had him on an episode of our podcast, and we were asking about the game, and one of the things he had this funny story about when he came up with the Clash Grand idea. He was like, "This has never been done before," and then a friend of his was like, "Isn't that just a Pokemon Stadium card?" He's like, "What?" He had never heard about it. So that was funny. But like I see something that's familiar but different. I think that's a good thing. Like I like being comfortable when I'm learning a new game. Like, oh, this makes sense.
Yes.
I get it. Like that's not
It's
a bad
relatable.
thing. That is not a bad thing at all.
And I'll tell you this: when I was describing that just now, I was thinking exactly of Alpha Clash.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, we're talking today. My next Alpha Clash video goes live tomorrow, and I say exactly the same thing that I said in this. It's okay for games to have relatable, familiar, even in some cases identical mechanics.
Right.
There's honestly not a lot of ways around that.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
I mean, go and design the most unique game you possibly can. You're going to have a hard time with that.
Right.
And it's not going to go very well, very easily if you don't incorporate something that is easily accessible to you and to the people that you're trying to teach the game to.
Right.
And that's okay. And I think if you take that and you optimize a lot of those things, for example, in Alpha Clash, I think one of the best, most subtle optimizations is that a lot of actions that you can play just draw you a card. Straight up draw you a card. Why is that optimizing? Because in a game where you take a card out of your hand as a land-based system and you place it in your resource zone, you are, over the course of the game, if you're playing cards, you're negative on cards, right? You're card negative. And you get to a point where you're top decking, where you just come off the top and you go, whatever I draw, is I guess I'm going to play that. This is a fun experience. Hope I shuffled well. And then you play the top card.
Right.
If your cards draw you cards, as part of their effect, along with the other thing they do, you're not top decking nearly as much. You're seeing more of your deck. You're making more impactful decisions. And all of that because they typed in draw a card. That is a simple, subtle optimization that really makes Alpha Clash a lot more fun than a card game that doesn't necessarily give you those ramp engines that you can run into the issues of.
Right.
Lazy card design, Dan.
I mean, it's
I
3
didn't
words.
say it was lazy, okay? It's not what I said. I was literally having this discussion with somebody else today. All right, we were having 2 different discussions. Okay, all right. So our video that dropped today, we talked about this. So this week we have a lot of Alpha Clash videos coming out. We had our contenders. We reviewed the contenders today, and then we're basically doing our entire set review this week. So in the middle of our video where we were discussing the contenders, we had a little tangent. Again, you and the tangents, okay? You cannot keep us on point. All right. We were talking about, we had a design discussion. Basically, I made some comment about he wanted to see here's an effect, okay? This card does this effect. I want to see a card that says do it again. Yeah. And I'm like, I think it can be lazy card design. That was it. It doesn't necessarily mean it is, but it can be. It has the propensity to. And he was like, no, it's not lazy. Like, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it can be. And then you went off. But it was a good discussion, nonetheless. Yeah. So that's
draw a card on 17 different cards, lazy card design.
There you
I
go.
like it.
That's
I like
it.
it. All right. I like it. All right.
Wait, I gotta ask you this. Okay, so
Yeah.
what are your both of your either favorite or the contender you want to go for?
Oh, it was funny because Ridge actually left a comment on that video today and asking the same question. I know what your question. I know what your answer is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mine is clarity. I absolutely love clarity.
That's the right answer. You win.
Stupidly
okay, congratulations.
good.
Well done.
Stupidly good.
Clarity is awesome, but I also would like to. I want to build a really nice, a good mean streak deck. I would like to see mean streak get really good.
Well,
but
those don't exist. Next question.
But yeah, clarity is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So
I love drawing cards. Anything that
Yeah.
lets me like opt,
Yep.
scry,
When
draw
you were
cards.
when you were talking about like, oh, I'm top
Yeah.
decking, hopefully I get something good. And I'm like, not with clarity. Let's take a look at these
That's
two. Let's
right.
look at this.
exactly.
That's right.
She's so crazy,
Yeah.
dude. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely bananas.
Sign me up.
Exactly. All right. So okay. I guess I'll ask you this before we move on to more Lorcana. But there's a lot of games. There's a lot of games coming out, which is for TCGs is really good. What games do you have your eyes on right now that you're interested
as far
in?
as what?
That you're interested in playing, just playing games that you would be interested in playing and potentially getting into.
Well, that's the weird question, and I think it's a weird question because I am open to playing just about any game that I can get my hands on. But if you want to know, like, I'll just go through a couple. That makes it easier. So,
Sure.
for example, I did a stream today opening a bunch of sorcery packs because I really
Jim,
enjoy
you want to
this
grab?
game.
You want to grab that right there?
You want me to
I
grab the whole
really
box?
Just the
enjoy
pack. Give me that pack.
how exploratory it is. I really enjoy how
This bad boy right
how it feels unique. Yeah, that's just we'll just hold it up while we talk.
there.
Yeah.
Fine.
I really enjoy how it feels
not sponsored.
very
Yep.
fresh in a lot of respects. It's got a lot of the same things that you would experience in like a Genesis, or even to go so far as like a Legacy's Allure. It's got a lot of the movement based. There you go. Yeah. Make sure that glares off that. We got to see the
Focus.
quarter sized. Just keep getting larger and larger product
ours is
placements.
right there.
This video is sponsored by Sorcery Contested Realm.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Would you like to be the avatar that discovers the world?
There you go.
I like that aspect of it. It's fun. It's to me it scratches a completely different itch than something like Flesh and Blood does.
Right.
Just totally like you're discovering both in pack openings and collection, but also when you actually play the game, you're discovering the game as you play it because you're creating the board and the world as you go about placing down, cards from your atlas and that sort of stuff. And then you're playing these crazy effects and you're always having to like go, okay, here's this random effect that 1, I didn't know existed, or 2, I knew existed, but I didn't expect to see here, or 3, I knew it was going to happen, but that card sucks and I hate it. And it's really tough to deal with. Like all the board's now flooded. Like, what do I do with this? Or, that goblin is carrying a giant explosive device that will destroy everything in 3 turns.
I love those guys.
And so it makes you do these weird mental gymnastics to like figure out the problem and try to solve it. And so I like that a lot. I feel like Alpha Clash scratches the Magic the Gathering itch without making me play Magic the Gathering. And it's not that I don't want to play Magic the Gathering. It's just that I don't want to play Magic the Gathering.
Right.
There it is.
And
It's not
I
what
have
you
yet
say,
to-
but it's what you say.
That's right. And I have yet to experience anything in the realm of Magic the Gathering that makes me want to start playing it again.
Yep.
And that's maybe that's a knock on the game, or maybe it's just a knock on the company that's running the game, or maybe it's both. But I don't know. I don't feel like jumping back into it. I played it very briefly, and it was fine. It was what it was. And so for me, I feel like games that optimize its mechanics are more alluring. And if I wanted to play that style of game, there are benefits to playing that game. I mean, like there are benefits to a lot of things in Magic the Gathering, and I can kind of scratch that itch, in my opinion, with something like an Alpha Clash. So that's kind of cool. And then you look at something like Grand Archive, which really threads the line between like Flesh and Blood and I guess something like Alpha Clash in some
Mhm.
respects. It has a lot of like really interesting mechanics that are in some ways unique or good little riffs off of other games that
Mhm.
I think are really interesting.
Mhm.
And then it's just a matter of getting your hands on product, which is a really tough thing for that game right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
Outside of those, I mean, like you're looking at, obviously, I'm very much excited to play Lorcana with my kids. Like
Mhm.
that is the number one game that I want to go and buy and play with my kids. And I have actively avoided looking at all the cards in the sets because I want to kind of experience some of it with my kids.
Mhm.
Obviously, I've looked at a good bit of it, but I haven't tried to like deep dive because I don't want
Mhm.
to treat it like a Flesh and Blood, like I'm going to
Mhm.
go spike an organized play event.
Mhm.
I want to treat it like, hey, this is an experience. I'm going to buy a box or two and sit down with my kids. We'll open it. We'll look at all the Disney characters we know, and then we'll
Mhm.
enjoy our time together. So for me, all these things hit on different fronts, which is why
Right.
when you ask what card games do you want to get into, I'm like, yes.
All of
The
them.
answer is
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because of different reasons. How
Right.
much time will I have? That's
Right.
the other question.
Right. Right. So what has you most excited and most intrigued about Lorcana specifically? Is it just that
Well,
you can play with your
one,
kids?
it's well, that is a big deal, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not the most intriguing thing. Like, here's the thing: I already play Pokemon with my kids from time to time,
Mm.
and like, if I wanted a game that was just to play with my kids, I could already just go and get a couple of the like little decks, the precon decks from that we have from Pokemon, and just play that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or my kids are really into this card game that came out a couple years ago in Kickstarter called Mage Noir. I don't know if you've ever heard of that game.
No.
Highly recommend. Absolutely fantastic. Actually, does feel like some very unique mechanics in that game.
Mm.
But to me, what's most exciting about Lorcana is that we're getting a riff on Keyforge in an IP that I love, that I'm 100% okay with my kids diving into for the long term
Mm-hmm.
and like along with me. And so really it's a package deal.
Right.
I love the mechanics that are in Keyforge. I
Mm-hmm.
love the race aspect of Keyforge, collecting all of the the, in this case in Lorcana, you're collecting lore and you're trying to play to a certain number of lore. And if there's the push and pull that you got in Keyforge and the really kind of elastic thinking that you have to do to
Right.
try and make sure your opponent doesn't hit there first, I am going to love that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to try it no matter what. And if it falls short of my gameplay aspirations, I'm probably still going to stick with it because it's something, again, that comes packaged. I get to
Right.
hang out with my kids to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
those are all the aspects that really get me excited to play the game.
Mm-hmm. So how excited were you when you found out how the game played and then you put out your
Watch
your
the video. That's how I excited. I actually, that was like the second or third take, because like the first two takes were just me just vomiting words unintelligibly because I was so pumped that it turned out to play that way. I was like, this looks like it could be a Keyforge-esque style game. And then
Yeah.
it was, and I was like, let's go. So I was quite pumped. Yeah, I was very excited.
Yeah, well, because when I saw that video, there were a couple people that I was talking to. I'm like, we think DM Armada is pretty much on point. He's got it, and this is pretty much exactly how it's gonna play. And then we found out, yeah, he hit it right on the money, right on the money.
Yep.
So
I mean, it looked like it, and it turned out to be the case. So
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
cool with it.
so have you seen like many of the cards, or are you just like, I'm just not really gonna look at really any of them?
Oh, I've seen. So I have put eyes on every card, but I have not internalized them like I would something like a Flesh and Blood, where I'm actively going to build decks and
Gotcha.
play in tournaments.
Gotcha.
So like you could tell me a card exists, and I would not be surprised by it, but I cannot read you out the text.
Okay.
And that is because I want to like take a card out and I want to go, hey, boys, look, Flotsam and Jetsam, they give rush and they give evasive. Isn't this cool? Do you remember them from? No, we hated that movie. It was terrifying. Oh yeah, I showed it to you too early in your lives. Oh, oops. Like that sort of stuff. Like I want that experience.
Speaking of showing to your kids too early, so we watched. So every Friday night, right? Me, my wife, and my kids, we have a Friday night movie night. So it's Friday night movie
Heck
night,
yeah.
and we have pizza. So pizza and movies
Heck yeah.
on Friday night, and it's normally a Disney movie, right? And so we've been going back through the old school Disney movies because they haven't seen a lot of them. and we just showed them they hadn't seen Bambi. So like, you know what, let's watch Bambi.
I haven't seen Bambi since I was a kid.
But I will tell you though, neither had I. It's been a year since I've seen that film. My good, they do not make movies like they used to. It was so
accurate.
well done. It looks so cool and so good. I mean, even it's not digital. It looks so good. It looks really, really. I forgot how well done, well made that movie was. It was very, very cool. And then multiple times throughout that movie, my kids were like, "Is this where Bambi's mom dies? She gets." Like, how do you guys even know that? You haven't even seen the movie.
Everyone knows.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. So is there one IP, or not, maybe not IP, but like characters that you most want to see in Lorcana that either that we've seen yet or that we haven't seen yet, or like one movie that you really love that you really want to see some cards for?
Yeah. So weirdly enough, one of my favorite Disney movies in recent memory was Tangled. And so like all the Rapunzel cards that I've seen so far got me super hyped. And so like I wanted to see like Flynn cards, and like Maximus was cool. Like I want to see more of that IP just because I really enjoyed that movie. Like probably more than I needed to. Like it was a solid film, but like I don't know. I'm a sucker for Zachary Levi. I think he's one of the coolest dudes.
Yeah.
And because I watched him when he was starring in that TV show Chuck. If you've ever seen Chuck.
Yep.
Chuck is great television until the last season. Great television.
Yeah, it was good.
And so I was a big fan of his, and then he did the voice of Flynn in that movie, and I was like, yep, this movie's awesome. And then it was a good movie too, and so like I liked that a lot. I liked Aladdin growing up as a kid a lot, so I liked seeing some of the Aladdin cards. Which was kind of fun, and I wanted to see more of those. But I think for me it was like I want to see more Tangled stuff. What about y'all? I want to know from y'all.
Well, I know. I mean, we know Jim. Go ahead.
All right. So when you were saying you enjoyed Tangle far too much, more than you probably should have, it's the same for me with Frozen. You know, I will dress up as Elsa tomorrow. I just can't find the dress my size. It just doesn't exist yet, I don't think. So I'm gonna have to get it custom made or something. And
then you can go with Penelope, my daughter.
Perfect.
She's got her own Frozen dress. She'll go with you.
She can be Olaf.
I think she may want to fight you on that one.
It's all right. I feel like I'm a win, Dan.
Yeah, I think you might dust that one. You might be able to dust that one. That one's probably firmly, solidly in your corner.
So for me, it would be two. Aladdin is a movie that I destroyed when I was a child. Meaning, I watched it, took it out, put it in the rewinder, and back and forth.
Yep. So the tape burned. Yeah.
Yep. So that one and Great Mouse Detective. That is probably one of my favorite movies. Right beside Aladdin. So when we saw that Mickey detective, I'm like, you know what? Why is that not Basil? That should be Basil.
One day.
I want to see Basil.
That was a good movie. I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid either, but I really enjoyed Great Mouse Detective. And I thought the ending was scary and just like the perfect ways.
Yeah, and it gave me some nightmares when I was a child. That's all right. Radigan was scary.
He was like freaky. A good scary.
Yes.
Like a good villain scare. I like that.
Yes.
I will say this too. I hadn't thought about Frozen, but Frozen was my first movie that I took my kids to in the theaters. Frozen 2. I took my kids to Frozen 2, and it was just post-COVID. And that was the first, like, I think, if I remember correctly, that was the first official movie they saw in theaters. And that was a good memory. They're going to love seeing some of that because they love Frozen everything as well. Both of my boys I'm super into it.
I know we took our kids to see Frozen 2, and I'm trying to think if that was the first movie that we took to see them to. It might have been.
I remember when you guys saw it, you asked me what I thought of it as well. I'm like, I didn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't like it nearly as much as the first one.
Okay, all right. But
oh my God, it was better.
You guys saw it a completely different way than what I did.
Correct.
It is better than the first one.
Okay. So when we were having this discussion, okay, I told him, I'm like, I'm sitting on one side of my kids. Okay. My wife is sitting on the other side of our kids. Okay. Spoiler alert if you've never seen Frozen 2. Okay. Spoiler alert if you've never seen
Yes,
Frozen
please
2.
put the spoiler
All
alert
right.
on
Yes.
a predominantly Lorcana discussion on
Yes.
Frozen 2.
All right. So the point in that movie when she finds out it's her mom, okay, and she's singing that song, my wife, I'm looking at my wife. We are like bawling our
Oh,
eyes
heck yeah,
out
man.
with our kids sitting. I'm like, okay, this movie is hitting me in so many different places right now, and so
I've been
yeah, okay,
found.
right.
It's
You
like
both are going crazy about
show
this. I'm just like, okay,
yourself.
whatever. It was her mother. Yeah, it happens in a lot of movies.
It was a little cheesy. I will say that it was a
It
little
was.
cheesy, but the
It
fact that,
was.
but the part where like she says, "I am found," I was like, okay,
Yep,
that one,
yep.
that part got me.
Yep,
Okay,
that got
yeah,
me
we'll go
right
with that.
here. Look at my wife, look at my kids. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna lose it. I am not gonna lose it here. Keep it together, man. Keep it together. I don't keep it together, but that's all right.
No,
That's all right.
I don't keep it together
No,
many times.
no.
Just let those tears flow.
Absolutely.
Happy tears, man.
Absolutely. All right. So before we move on, one last question regarding Lorcana. So what's one thing that you think Ravensburger has to get right, if anything, for the game to succeed? Because right now I feel like, the excitement level just feels like it is literally like out of this world. It just seems like there's so much hype around the game. And I just think it's because it's a Disney card game. We haven't really seen a Disney card game to this extent, to this level
Mhm.
before this. So, like, what does Ravensburger have to get right to really keep that excitement and intensity level up and for the game to succeed?
It's a good question, and here's the reason it's a good question: is what do you want from the game, and what is success for the game? Do they want it like just cash? Do they want like income? Because if they want cash and they want income, they can do a lot of things differently. If they want an active community, then they have to do things differently even from that. So
Mhm.
if we're talking, what I hope is that they want this to be a game that is a successful long-term game. And
Right.
yes, it's also perhaps a collector's piece for people that love, Disney IPs, and it can act functionally as like a uh, I don't want to say a copy, but it can live in the same space as Pokemon, where there are
Mhm.
people that just love the IP, but then there are people that love to play it. If that's what they're going for, and I really hope it is, because I think it hits on all the cylinders, if that's what they're
Mhm.
going for, they have to convince local game stores that the game is worth carrying long term. Because
Mhm.
if the first set releases and they have a box at an LGS, and that box sells and they can't get more product, and they can't get more product, and they can't run events because people don't have product, and then the game has a second set and that does markedly better as far as print runs are concerned, the company or the LGS that is looking at picking up that second set could say, okay, cool, yeah, we can buy that and then maybe just kind of flip it to some people that like it, but I'm not going to run events,
Mhm.
and I'm just going to buy what I know the local community would want to probably purchase.
Mhm.
It's not going to seed like a Pokemon would. And
Right.
so they have to convince local game stores in some way, shape, or form that the game is worth investing in set after set,
Mhm.
that it's profitable set after set, and that it's worth running events set after set. And therefore, you can have players in the store spending money at your local game store on this organized play program, and on the cards themselves, on the packs themselves. Now, if that turns out not to be necessary and they just want to go full Pokemon and just do their own like regionals and have people just like go and play, those events and then just sell via the LGS, maybe it can be successful that way. But I would love to see it played at local game stores. And that's what Ravensburger said when they
Right.
announced their organized play. They said, hey, we're going to have lots of incentives for new players to, play, and old players to teach new players to play and play in the game store. And if that's the case, you have to convince the actual place, the game store, to carry the game set after set. So for me, that's what I'm most apprehensive about, and I'm really most cheering for. I hope they can somehow stick the landing and get
Right.
stores really bought in and excited.
Right.
across the country and the world.
Right. But in order to do that, they need to really print. Like they have to print a
Mhm.
lot of product. And with the way
Well, and they have to get it in the hands, right? And they
right,
have to add stores to the organized play
right.
pathway that they sent out emails for. Like all of those things have to
But
happen,
wouldn't
right?
you want to make that easier for game stores to become a part of and not make it harder? But I mean,
Yeah.
I think the wrinkle in this, and maybe I'm wrong, the wrinkle in this might be Disney as a company, their involvement. I have no idea, right? I don't know if they're saying they have certain standards that these local game stores need to meet the requirements of in order to be a part of that.
Mhm.
I have no idea. But I
Hmm.
just think from a logistical standpoint, to if you want to make you want to get more stores involved into this program, yes, you have a standard, but if only 10% of total stores are meeting that standard, then the only thing you can do is adjust the standard, because if you don't do that, then are are there going to be more stores that, get in ship shape, if for lack of a better term, to meet that standard? But again, that's from somebody looking way on the outside. And I have no idea. I have no
Mhm.
clue.
Well, if let's just pretend hypothetically that that is a point of contention. Why do stores care if they're not part of it, if they don't see the game as exciting, profitable, and something that people want?
That's
That
true.
is going to keep that store alive.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
if they don't look at this as something like, oh, you know what, this is going to be a scalper's dream, and I'm going to sell out, and then I'm never going to get product again, and someone's just going to flip this, and this sucks. Why am I even doing this?
Hmm.
If they see the game like that, and they choose not to continue to back it going forward, then is there really that much incentive for them to maybe become tip top
Right,
shape as you described it,
right,
and kind
right,
of get into that pathway?
right,
So they have to convince stores that it's worth it
right,
profitably, like long term,
right,
so that they invest, because stores don't have the unlimited capital.
right, right, right. Yeah, and for a set one, it's always a precocious place to be in, right?
Yeah,
And we're in that position with a few games right now. It's like you don't know where it's
yeah,
gonna go, and
yeah.
then and these are things where you got to give it time. The
Mhm.
community's got to get their hands on it to see what they think about it. So I'm very interested, and the more we keep talking about it, like before we got on this call, we were going over some cards, and we're just like, man, the more stuff we see about it, the more excited we're getting.
Mhm.
It seems like it's gonna be really fun. And again, just like you, I'm excited to get this into the hands of my kids too, because I
Mm,
think this is gonna be the game that would get them interested in this type of hobby,
Mm.
in
yeah,
card games.
Mhm.
So I'm
yeah.
very, very intrigued for sure. So, all right. Well, with that, we're gonna move on to one of our favorite segments, and it's been a little bit since we've done a card of the week, but anytime we have a guest, we like to ask them to give us a card of the week, and we've got another one from a game that we have yet to feature on card of the week. So, Steven, can you take it away for us? What is this week's card of the week?
Sure. This week's card of the week is King Blackbolt, ruler of Atalan. King Blackbolt is a Dice Masters card. It is a super rare. You can tell it's a super rare because it has a red stripe on the bottom separating the
Mhm.
text box
Hmm.
from the sort of die stats on the bottom. It has a max of 1. So in Dice Masters, you can bring generally 4 copies of a die and purchase those over the course of the game to get multiple triggers of the effect and use them. In this case, there's only one, and it's the king. It's King Black Bolt. He is a decent stat line, as you can see down there at the bottom. He's a 0 cost to put out there in the field. He attacks for 3, blocks for 2. He's a 1/4/4, a 1/6/5, and so he's pretty beefy in the field. If you're thinking like Magic the Gathering, that stat line is pretty solid. And of course, you can roll out those on any number of faces, and you can get different things from that. And he also costs 4, and you have to spend different energy types to purchase him, and you
Oh.
can't spend question marks, which are the easiest and most flexible energy types in the game. You
Hmm.
actually have to hard cast him straight up to purchase that and put it in the bag. But I picked this card because it was the win condition of the first ever highly competitive team that I ever put together and took into an actual kind of serious tournament, and played in like a 6-round, 7-round tournament. and tried to do my best to actually go ahead and win and take down. And this was the linchpin kind of win condition that set up essentially a burn combo, wherein you
Mm.
purchased this, cheating it out with a couple of really cute tricks and global abilities, which are instant speed effects that both players can trigger if you have the resources for it. So you would do a couple of really cute tricks to purchase a King Black Bolt. You'd buy some specific dice that match those energy. You'd get him cycling and then put him out in the field. And then he says this: when King Black Bolt is targeted by a global or an action die, he deals 1 damage to your opponent. So you'd basically just target him a bunch with like this global ability, which is an instant speed, pay 1, do a thing that doesn't actually matter because you don't care about the effect, you care about dealing the damage. And so it was getting him in the field, getting a bunch of energy, and basically setting up an engine wherein you, on your opponent's turn or on your turn, just paid energy and popped them for 1 every time you paid. So you just go, cool, it's my turn. I roll 6 energy, pop, 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 pop. All right, move on. Your turn. Okay, your turn. I'm going to do this thing and then block and then pop, 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 and then you just kind of burn them down very quickly. Was the goal. So it was very burn heavy, and it managed to take me into, I believe, the top 4 of that tournament. It was either
Nice.
yeah, I think it was the top 4 of that tournament. So I almost got to the finals, and I had a decent favorable matchup, and I just missed it. But it was a blast, and this card is very near and dear to my heart.
And that was your first major tournament for
For a
Dice
card
Masters?
game period.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I would say for a card game period, it was my first.
Wow.
Like it was the first tournament that I really said, you know what, this is a large scale tournament. This is one that I really want, and I'm going to go ahead and put together a team. And there were a lot of team options at the time. The meta was very wide open in some respects, and so you could really kind of play just about anything. And this was the one that I went with, and that made it really tough because if you're building a deck of only 10 cards, you have to think about what countermeasures you're going to include in that deck. There's no sideboarding. Okay. It's I build the deck. I'm rewarded or punished by my deck building choices. And I go and I slam it down into the field and see how I can fare. And it paid off for the most part. Almost got me the top finals match.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you say deck of 10 cards, and nowadays people hear that and they think Marvel Snap.
Hey, you know what? Maybe it was ahead of its time. It was a Marvel game.
Wow. So do you remember the time that we played Dice Masters, Jim?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And you didn't have fun?
No, all right. It was enjoyable. I
Okay.
just didn't feel like I was good at it. And I was just like, okay, I don't even know if I want to get good at this
I
game.
wasn't good at it either, right? Because that was just
Yeah.
I watched some of his videos. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now I know how to play.
Yeah.
Let's
But
pick
I did
a
enjoy it.
Yeah, okay.
It
all
was
right.
fun.
There we go. So
The cool thing about the game, in my opinion, is that the more you play it, the more layers are sort of unfolded onto itself. And I've experienced that only a few times with card games, wherein like, okay, I know how the game functions, but I can think about the game in a slightly deeper and different way. And then you start doing that, and then you realize that you can think about the game in an even deeper way. And the further down the rabbit hole you go, the more you understand the kind of conceivable possibilities. And it feels like almost, it's like chess, wherein there are a variety of ways that you can kind of interface with. You could start, you could just play like beginner chess. You need to learn how the pieces move, or then you can learn that there's openings that give you some tacit benefit, but maybe you don't know why they give you a benefit. Why am I playing king's pawn or queen's pawn? Why am I moving the knight into this position? Why am I doing it now? But the more you do them, the more you start to maybe pick up on why you're doing those things. And then you start to realize that they have merit and benefit. And there's not many games that I've played that I've experienced that so palpably with Dice Masters. The same thing I could probably say about Flesh and Blood. Those two games to me really feel like they capitalize on the same kind of area of your brain, wherein you really feel rewarded for learning deeper and deeper into the game. And it's a game that I can totally understand if you've played it once or twice and you're like, yeah, There's RNG in this. I'm literally rolling dice to see what happens in this game. And the more you do it and the more you play with experienced players, the more you go, oh, wait, maybe if I thought about it this way, or if it did this, or if I kind of maybe calculated range analysis here, what are the chances that I roll this? What do I do? Like, the more you do that, the more fun it gets. And it just gets better and better.
You see, Jim doesn't like to do that. What Jim likes to do is, it's my turn. I go face.
One mana, 3 damage.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. You know what? I mentioned it earlier. The card that broke the game was a go face deck. It was a go face card. It was a Dungeons and Dragons card. It was a half elf bard, and it gave all of your stuff +1/+1 for each other type of character in the field.
Oh.
And it was cheap. And it was easy to get because the game has some really sweet instant speed things that you can do. And it broke the format. I remember watching one of the most well-respected players at the time on a streamed tournament. It was a mirror match of that deck, and it was a best of 3. And they decided who was going first, and she went first, and she missed the roll, and she conceded on turn 1, and they went to game 3. And it was in that moment that everyone kind of acknowledged, yeah, this deck sucks and it needs to be gone. And at the end of that tournament, one of the top players at the time literally took that card and like put gum on the back of it and smacked that card on the top of the stairwell in that event center and quit the game. All but quit the game in that tournament. Wow. And it was like, they should probably do something about that. But you know what? You could pick it up and I could teach you how to play exactly half elf bard buzzsaw. We can go back to those days.
Well, I really like this King Black Bolt. I want to machine gun stuff down.
Well, hang on. Maybe you bring it because you're going to be in Chicago in a couple weeks, I think, right?
True, yeah.
All right, you said bring it. We'll be there.
I'll be there right after work. That couch is looking real good too.
Yeah, it's a pretty comfy couch. I did sit on it after you left. It was still warm.
Oh yeah.
Awkwardly so.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well that is this week's card of the week. Thank you, Armada, for that one. That is a very, very interesting card. So as we wrap it up, again, just thank you so much, Stephen, for being here. But before we leave, can you tell everybody where they can find you and your content on the internet?
Sure. I do most of my stuff on youtube.com/DM Armada, where I make videos about all card games. And anything that I can get my hands on, I'll probably make a video on if it's interesting to me. So you can find that information and all that stuff there on youtube.com/DM Armada. I also hang out a lot on Twitter. Twitter is like my new social media scroll, which is kind of weird because Twitter's super old now, but I didn't get on it until recently. And it's a fun time. So you can check me out at Armada_DM because someone thought that they should take DM Armada as a username before I even coined it, which is just stupid.
All right, Charmer. Just you sound like Charmer right now, completely. Have you ever talked to him about his Twitter handle?
No, I haven't. Now I'm going to bring it up.
Yes. All right, it's a talking point. Bring it up next time.
Isn't there an Armada in Super Smash Bros. As well?
There is, yes. And I remember sitting in my son's room trying to come up with a name, and the first thing I thought was Armada, and I was like, "Oh crap, that's taken by some random guy in Super Smash Brothers," and that guy's never going to go out of style. People will always remember him. How could I possibly supplant that as this random Dice Masters guy on YouTube? And you know what? So I put the DM in front of it.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. This is honestly a conversation I've been looking forward to having for a while, ever since I came across your content. So it was a treat. So thank you so much for being here. And we hope to see you sometime soon and continue these conversations. So thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. It's nice to sit back and just relax.
And here is another episode, another conversation where we finished the conversation and we still kept talking for a while. We were like, okay, we gotta leave. We could have kept going for another couple hours.
He wasn't even planning on being there that long. He was just like, I got a little over an hour. Well, we went a little over an hour.
But that was a lot of fun. Jim, we're gonna get him to play Dice Masters. Kind of. I don't know. Are we?
I mean, I'm down. It was just all right. So I was thinking about it, okay?
Yes,
and I'm
yes, you're
like,
thinking.
I enjoyed it, but I enjoy games more when I'm able to research the game before I actually play it, and I get to build my deck. You know,
Watch his stuff. Watch his
just-
content.
it's just something about it.
Yeah, you've got
I know.
content.
I know. I was just more so meaning from like the first time we played it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's
got
what
what
I
you're
was
saying.
meaning.
I see what you're saying. So, okay, so I had that experience. You didn't have that experience for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So we need a game where you get that experience and I don't get it, and then the tables will be reversed.
The
and
turntables.
The turntables have turned. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. So thanks everybody for hanging out, checking that out. Before we get out of here, Jim, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram at Jim Morgan HNH.
You guys can find me on Twitter _DG Campbell, Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. There's so many social media accounts now with the new threads. There's so much stuff going on, so much stuff. But if you head over to our website, www.hobbiesandhappiness.com, you can find links to all of our social content there. The majority of everything lives on youtube.com/hobbies and happiness. So if you go there, you can find links to pretty much all of our stuff. And that's the episode. Had a lot of fun. We're almost at episode 100, guys. Almost at episode 100.
Feels like we're one away.
Feels like it. I don't know if we are, but it feels
Feels
like
like
it.
we're one away.
If this is episode 9, we're so close, and we don't know what we're gonna do. We're just gonna hang out. We're gonna have a good time, and we're just gonna talk about card games. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us today, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.